Hello and welcome to step 10. Here we're going to be adding a few more detailed parts to the chassis. We're going to start off with the fuel tanks for the left and right side. There's one large tank and one small tank. And again, I've already cleaned everything up and I'm just going to assemble it. And not much to this. Wasn't too hard to clean up. The only thing you really need to worry about is making sure that when you add the parts to the side, as you can see, the top is right there, that the sides line up so you have a minimal amount of seam in these areas. And I like to go through and just put a little bit of extra liquid there, squeeze it together just to make sure that I've got a good interface. Once that's done, I'm going to put the fuel cap on. Now, from what I've seen, fuel cap can go on in any direction. I like to give it a little bit of a cant or a tilt just because it makes it seem kind of interesting. Now, the next part of this is which side does the straps go on right here versus the cap, because this is going to lean forward and have the steps, that's what they are, right here. And I'm thinking that actually I want to swap this around if I can. So let's see if I can take this apart, and you'll notice that even after a short period of time, now I can't, there's only one proper way to put this on because there's two pegs on the one side and one peg on the other. So this is put on correctly. There's no other way to do this. So I'll re-glue this. But it's nice to know that you can't screw this up without really trying. And it also shows that, you know, the bonding of these parts is pretty quick. So there's that. One trick that I have, at least that I like to do, is putting the photo etch on with glue rather than with super glue or anything else. So the thing to notice in particular about the part F8 is that one side, the tabs on each side are a little bit thicker, and on the other they're a little bit thinner, and it's the thinner side that is the upper side. So all I'm going to do is put some glue down. In this case, I'm going to make sure that I put a real fair amount so I can see it. I'm going to take the photo etched piece and I'm going to slide it on. And once the glue starts to set, it will stay on there nice. In my practiced history, but it also makes the photo etch a lot easier to deal with regular glue. Now, if I'm a little worried about it not sticking, I'll put a little bit of glue on the edge, let that capillary action pull it in, but there it is. Same thing with this. The two notches go up top. The short side for this strange bend is the top. Go in, put a lot of that glue in. then go in on the front edge, and finally for the same thing. Now, all photo etch pieces aren't going to work like this. Obviously, photo etch pieces that are photo etch on photo etch, yeah, that's something where you're going to have to use super glue. But for this, because the plastic will adhere to it when it's in this softened state, this will work. And the nice thing is that even though it's not a super duper crazy awesome bond, the point when you get to priming and painting, the primer actually will help to really hold these parts on, in my previous experience. At least that's what I like to see. So without any positive marks on here, I'm using the instructions as a guide. I'm going to grab this and just place it on there, and then add a little bit of glue. Yeah, sorry, I'm not really putting it in view of the camera here like I should be. And then I'm going to go through and make sure that I've got that square. Looks good. And then I'm going to put some glue on the bottom underneath here. And then I'll add the other one, with the idea being right here that the small edge with the rounded part is going to be sticking there, and we want them all to kind of line up so that it looks like a straight set of stairs when you look at it from the side. So that'll give you your spacing for the step. And this is by no means completely accurate. They don't give you any positive spacing for this. So you may want to consult resources or references. But honestly, I think that looks pretty good. You can see right there. Looks like when it's on the side of the truck, it's going to be set up for somebody to walk in. And if you like character on your parts, nothing gives it more character than being a little bent. Moving on to the small gas tank, we have the same thing, but this time I'm just going to work my way through it. To get this done. Now, sometimes when I'm cleaning up, I'll wait until I put the parts together, like so, and then I will take my sander, in this case just a sanding block, and go through while there's still some glue there. And I've noticed that sometimes that helps to fill in some of the more annoying areas or lifted areas or something that might need a little bit of work. But the glue is still wet, so anything that gets in the seam kind of acts like a little bit of a filler. But because of the way that this is set up, as far as flat and using this particular sponge, it doesn't seem to spread the glue or make a mess. At least that's what I found. And I'm just kind of lightly working my way through. I'm using the 180 grit side, not the 120. And this is just to get things in fairly decent order. Nothing too special. I'm going to switch over to the 120 on this side because it doesn't seem to quite line up. And that might be a little mold shift. It might be, I don't know. The important part is, now that I'm done If there is a step there, it's pretty small. And everything feels like it's well connected. Put the glue on. Again, the fuel cap just goes on, and I'm just putting it on the way that I think it should go. Now, it looks like I missed cleaning these parts up. I'm not sure why, but go through that real quick. Again, the thicker part is on the bottom, the thinner part is on the top. And there that is, even with these long pieces, they still do tend to conform pretty well because the plastic gets nice and sticky. Yep, for whatever reason, I kind of missed out on cleaning up these parts. So I'm just running through them real quick, checking to make sure that everything looks good. So here we go. And again, going by what we've got there, tabs are at the top with the small rounded area that's similar to the other one that's going to be glued on right there. So doing the same thing, glue PE part. I'm just using my fingers, but if I really want to make sure that everything's seating properly, I will grab my forceps and use them. To seat the stuff. And I do apologize that this goes a little bit out of range of the video. Pickup, I may need to move more in this direction, only because I'm leaning over fairly far just to get here. So still working on the whole ergonomics of doing these videos, showing it, making sure everybody can see what's going on. But glue on top. And glue will go underneath it after I square everything up. It looks like when I took these parts off of the PE fret, the ends got just a little bent. Just want to make sure everything sits down nicely. But again, like I said, some people like the fact that there's a little bit of a bent behavior and not quite everything is so 180 degrees, square edges kind of set up, makes it look like it's in used condition rather than straight up best condition. That's personal choice. Have fun with that one way or the other, you know? I'm not here to tell you that fresh out of the factory or 180 degrees square compared to what it should be is good or bad. That's part of the fun of the hobby. You get to choose what you want. Or sometimes if the hobby doesn't agree with you, it tells you what it's going to do. And again, what we're aiming for is that we have 3 parallel steps going up into or around the curve here. So I have what I think is a good foundation for that. Okay, so I'm happy with that too. Now we're moving on to, just got to be careful that when I do that I don't move that step. Now we're going to move on to doing all of this very busy goings on, and in that I'm going to introduce, this is a small photo etch bending tool that I use. You can see right here there's a piece of photo etch that needs to be bent. So I thought I would show you how I do this. First, I make sure that the part is all generally cleaned up. If there are any burrs that need to be cleaned from where I clipped it off, I take a small file, go through and clean those little burrs up. So that's done. Check on both sides. Sometimes the burrs will instead bend over rather than get filed off, but that's taken care of. Now it looks good. Now I can see that the relief is on this side and the etching for the slots is on this side, so I will be bending this into the folds rather than away, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go actually and do this on the long side so that I can place my piece right there. Like so. And then bend it 90 degrees. Pretty simple. Now, what happens when I'm in this situation to where, hey, I've got this and I want to bend that 90 degrees, but I don't have that part, meaning the ability to fold it that way, to fold it against the large part. Well, what I do is I put the smaller part in on the line. Sorry. And tighten this up until I get it immobile, and that can be kind of, takes a little time to get there sometimes, but anyways, get it to that and then 90 degrees with that. So now that I've bent that part and that's ready to go, put my photo etch bending tool away and let's get started on this real quick. So here's my frame right here, parts up in front. So first I've got my E43 and I've got the hole down here, so that's where I'm gonna put the first part. Like so. That's started. Now this is supposed to go on the inside and has a 90 degree twist to go on this part back here. So with that in mind, and the fact that it looks like these are supposed to go, the bolts detail is supposed to be on the top, I'm going to put glue on that to start with. I'm going to put glue on the back side of this. Take my forceps. I'm going to put that in first, and then I'm going to realize that that's a bad idea. And then I'm going to come around and somehow I'm going to manage to get all this to work. So there's that. I'm going to pull this part out and then push it in, because that is way simpler than what I was doing. if it'll even fit. So part of the problem here seems to be that either the post won't line up to go through the hole, possible, or that the hole is too small, possible. Now I'm slowly putting pressure on it. I got it to go in on this piece here, and it is stuck in that piece there. So that's how we want it to look. That done, I'll put a little bit more glue in here and on here, just to make sure that everything sits correctly. I'm going to skip these J parts for right now and work my way down the list. So we have to go all the way over to here to put on D46. Just slides on nicely. And then right next to it there is a hole right here for K26 and a slot right here for this that it fits in, and it's going to slide over rather than sit just strictly on top. So what I want to do is put that in the hole, and I might have to hold it with my thumb to get it to stay there, so I can pivot this and just glue it right there. So that's on, pretty simple, slides on pretty easy. Put a little glue in there so that the pad sits. Now the next part is going to be this hose of H14, and it's one end up here, one end into this top of the cylinder area, and it is the straight up and down that goes into the cylinder area with the curve 90, the shorter, I guess, 90-degree curve going in. So it's a nice detail, looks really, really slick. Good to go. Now we come to my photo etch, and this part, the larger bend has the two holes, and that goes on top of and around these two bolts right here. Oh, I'm sorry, I was too far off to the side, my mistake. Anyways, the photo etch part is going to go on these two bolts right here. I've got to get better at this, a little more situational awareness. The only problem is by doing this build the way that I am, I don't have the ability to do second takes, so it's kind of, you know, one and done. So if I messed up and missed out on that a little bit earlier for the parts, there's the hose right here on this top of this. Here's the shock arm going in there. Here's D46 on this. Looks like it twisted a little bit. Go back and do that. Yep. So now I've got the photo etch piece on. Now with this K26, I'm going to slide everything this way so you can see a little bit better. Right here, I'll try and show you once again. Here's the mount pin, and here's the slots that go for that. It goes on pretty slick. I didn't have any problems with the first one. Glue up this, put that in here so that it pivots, and then just slide it on. I think that's pretty slick. next we're moving on to, up to F3. And this one, again, the hole is on top here, and then the other hole is right there for the end of the hose. So we add this here. And we take the hose, and this one, the line twists 90 degrees and has a short run, and that's what attaches to the side of the frame if you don't do tweezer launch. And then the longer part goes down into the hole on the shock absorber-ish piece. And just like that. Now this is not going in the hole as much as just sitting on top of the hole. So be warned. I'll put a little bit of extra glue there and there just to make sure. So, working our way down. This time I'm going to put the other H4 on in the back first. So again, hole up top, hole on the side, take the hose, long side down. Get it in the hole. There we go. And long side down. And that works. Now, the setup for this is somewhat similar to what we've seen before. This time I'm going to check and see how the arm goes. And it has the detail like this. So I want to have this piece sticking out there, and for this going down I want the bolt detail on that side. I don't know, yeah, if I do it this way the bolt detail is on top and bottom, and that's not correct. So make sure you have it oriented correctly, like so. This goes on the outside hole, which I think is going to be easier to start with, but I'm going to glue and put that right in there to start with. Let that set for just a second. And then this is a little different. This goes over this post right here. And then it also goes into the slot right there. So, unlike the front one where this had a post that went into a hole, this actually has a hole that goes onto a post. And then make sure that's in place. Yep. Make sure this is in place. Yep. Make sure that's in place. Yep. And again, I'm skipping these J1 parts until after this side is done, because these are going to be harder to keep control of. I don't want to be touching them and breaking anything. It's going to be fun enough getting them to stay on as it is. So I'm going to start from the back and work forward. So another hose right here and here. Little pressure on that, yeah, that's because it isn't in the hole here. There we go. Sometimes you can tell when it's like, hey, why won't this go in? Why won't this go in? Well, you're not all the way in the hole, you're only a little bit of the way in the hole. Sometimes when you take a part off, it will break, like this hose. So the first thing that I do is I tack up the two parts between the hose. Like so. And reconnect them just to get them tacky and start setting back in. So right now it's starting to solidify again and turn into a whole piece. While that's happening, I am going to glue it in. So again, there and there, just like on the other side. I will now take the piece and carefully attach it with the knowledge that at any given point it may crack at the joint, but it looks like it's holding. I don't want to mess with it too much. Looks like it matches the other side. I'm going to call it good right there, and okay. Next we have K25, which is right there and right there. Put the pivot on first and then get it to settle on the suspension frame part. What's nice is that is giving you a lot of solid support for your frame. These are the pieces that have been kind of mobile, and they stick into these rubberized portions. This gives you the solidity, if you want to call it that. Next is another hose right here, H4. Yeah, don't put it in upside down like I just tried to. Come in from the top, go in from the side. It's a little tough. There we go. Looks good. Next is going to be another one of the frame solidifiers. I just wish I should bone up on my nomenclature for this to know what all these parts are. They look like rigid piston suspension arms. I'm quite sure I have some experience dealing with hauling loads. I have had a Class A license and a CDL in the past. I have hauled equipment around. Nothing comparing to M1070 for really heavy loads, but having done that, I can say that all that suspension is there for a reason, not just for good looks. Now, it looks like what we have left here are these 3 notches in this plate, and that's where the 2 H21s and the J20 are going to go. So, starting in the middle of J20, if I can grab it. That is a bit of a big if. I'm going to put this on, and from what I can see of it, it's the round part on top with the little notch on bottom, and the diamond shape, the bolts go to either side. Now, moving on to H21, it looks like the detail faces in, and the glue's already set, so while I'm here, add a little extra glue. Like so, and like so. They look relatively square and level in this case. Looks good to me. Little glue here, little more glue there. All right. Now we also have what's going to end up being the spare wheel holder, flat side right here, part B1 here. This plugs into the middle slot. Doesn't fit the lower one, goes right in the middle, like so. Plug it in, put in some glue, like so. Makes the part. This part then goes on right underneath here in that chevron shape from the back side of B1. So make sure you know which direction, which piece is going at which time. Make things a lot easier on yourself. I'm just gluing the edge for the frame. Now technically I suppose you could put B1 on first to make sure you get that the way you want, and then put the spare wheel holder on. I did not. Put some glue here and here to start getting that solid. And now I'm going to look and see how this is. It's a little off. There is a fair amount of play in that fit. So, okay, that's on. Now we're going to start adding the J1 parts. Here and here is where they attach on this side. So I'm going to do this whole piece right here. Take apart and put it on solid. Glue is on. Take apart, put it on solid. Carefully, knowing that I've got a number of pieces, I'm going to do this side here, here, and here. Glue part solid. These are often some of the most intimidating parts because they break easy. They are bent pieces rather than straight pieces. They stick out, and eventually the fuel tanks are going to go on them, and you want everything to be right, and it's just they get to be in the way and kind of a pain. Glue part on solid. I've had some experience building like AMT Ertl truck kits in the past where you have these on the side, or some of the other truck kits that are out there, like from Italeri or Hobby Boss, Deuce and a Half, or 5-ton trucks. Trumpeter has a kit out now that I have not seen yet, but all I can say is just kind of square them up the best you can. Once you've got them all on, again, being careful of all the other parts you've put on. Now, I'm going to put that down, move this over. So at the end of step 10, you have 2 fuel tanks of different sizes and the frame with all of this extra detailing on it. I hope that this hasn't bored you too much, but that's what's involved in step 10, and see you for step 11.